up, everybody? Hey, listen, on this episode I show you how I adjust the valves on my Mustang, and I'll show you why I'm having to adjust the valves. What's up, everybody? Hey, listen, welcome back to my garage. I'm glad to have you. I hope you guys somewhat miss me. I have been kind of missing, and I really apologize for that. The truth is, I don't have a whole lot to work on the car right now. However, I think that's going to change, and not because of the turbo. Unfortunately, I know I've been promising everyone the turbo kit, and I'm going to be honest, some things got in the way, money-wise, and I'm saving for it. It'll come soon. But on top of that, we've got some issues with the Mustang I think I need to take care of before I even go any further with a turbo. So that's some important things. We're talking about really the transmission. So I'll tell you guys about that here in a minute. I did spend a little bit of time on my new truck. I did get my 2016 F-150. I've had it about a month or so, and I decided to go ahead and take the time to get it right the way I want it, and then just drive it and be done with it, not touch it. So I did go ahead and put a lift on it. A little bit of a lift, leveling kit, some Fox Racing shocks, and some, bigger tires. Other than that, I'm going to leave it alone. But enough about that. That's no fun. This is fun. Let's talk about this for a second. Why am I doing a valve adjustment? Well, a couple reasons. I've been driving it kind of hard. If you didn't know, I fixed the ignition timing issue, or the timing issue, the ignition issue. It was bouncing off about 4,000 to 5,000 RPMs. It wouldn't go any higher. It wouldn't wrap up anymore. So I spent some time in the last video kind of diagnosing that issue. Ended up finding out that it was the coil, and on top of that, I replaced it with the original TFI module, and I bumped the timing up from 12 degrees base to 13 degrees. So doing that made this thing a freaking animal. It is a completely different car. And it wraps up, and it is absolutely so much fun to drive. It really is, and it has a lot more. I can't even tell you how much more power this thing has. It's a blast. It's pushing some good horsepower to the wheels, and it has no problem spinning to 7. That being said, I did take it out on a Friday night, ran it kind of hard, and ended up revving it pretty high, probably at 65, and bounced off 7 easily. And anyways, everything was fine. Everything still runs good. There's nothing really wrong with it. Took it home the next morning. It was cold. Started up and heard a nice loud clatter that was clearly coming from the passenger side. Absolutely a lifter clinging on the passenger side. That being said, the next day I came out, started it up to actually shoot this video for you guys, and the tick had gone away. So that leads me to believe that most likely one of the lifters is probably just sticking a little bit. As well as a lifter tick, I also have an issue with my transmission. This is why the Mustang pretty much right now is a little bit out of commission. I can drive it, I can run it, but the transmission is making noise, guys. I know I'm putting a lot more power than it had before stock through that stock T5, who's never been rebuilt, never been touched. I'm pretty sure it is the stock transmission from 1986. I bolted up with a really nice McLeod clutch, and have been hammering through the gears, and now I've got a nice sound in first gear. Check this out. Alright, see if you guys can hear this. Really only in first gear. So the sound goes away in second. Hear that click though, but man, this thing wraps up like crazy. And looks like we're about to get some storms, so I didn't exactly pick a good time. But it's running good, but definitely got some vibrations that I'm not happy with right now. Something's off on it, and we need to find out what it is. So we'll see when I get home. So the first gear is making lots of noise. This video we're just going to looking at the valves, and next video I'm going to be checking out the transmission, possibly pulling it. So there's quite a bit to be done, and we got to check out this transmission before we put the turbo on it. There's no need to put all that kind of power to it on a transmission that's on its way out the door. For peace of mind, and since I told you, and I said that we were going to go through a valve adjustment, it's pretty easy. Most of you out there have done this. If you haven't, there's a couple ways to do it. There's not a right and wrong way. I guess there's a few wrong ways, but there's a few right ways to do it. I'm going to show you the way that I've always done it. This is the way that I've done it on the Trino and many other 302s in the past and other Ford engines, and it's always worked for me, so let's get right to it. Sounds a little bit better today. What you can do is take yourself a hose, put one side up to your ear and the other side up against the engine. I don't hear it. It may be very, very, very subtle. It actually sounds good now. Yesterday, trust me, there was a nice loud tick coming out of the motor. I'm contributing that probably to a lifter that was sticking and maybe wasn't pumped up all the way. Because a bent push rod or a misadjusted rocker isn't just going to resolve itself. That's going to be consistent. So maybe what we ought to think about doing is changing the oil in it. It's got 500 miles on it now with the break-in oil. Change it, put some good synthetic in it, get some of this old oil out since the motor's been broken in with it, and change the filter, get a good oil change in. Well, luckily for me, this is all pretty simple, guys. We're just going to take off the mass air sensor. We're going to take off the intake. Let's go ahead and take it off. Remove the intake. Go ahead and unplug the throttle position sensor. And I know we need to take the throttle body off, so we're going to go ahead and remove this guy. Go ahead and remove your air out of control valve. Okay, now the reason why we have to remove the throttle body is because there's not enough room to take the valve cover off with the bracket here. Your brackets, screw right up against the valve cover itself, so you're going to have room to slide this thing off. So unfortunately, to take this side off, passenger side's a little bit easier, but take this side off, you could have to strip off the throttle body. So mine, now remember guys, this is your EGR spacer, your EGR block. On an emissions vehicle, you've got two hoses coming from your heater hose. It just goes through it, the inside and outside of it. So this will be filled with coolant. So just keep that in mind. Mine is dry and is not, so. Should be 10 mil. Went ahead and remove the spark plug boots on this side just to get them out of the way. Oil free, this is our ceramic coating. Okay, it may take some muscle to get this loose. Once you get it loose, now we can back off the adjuster here. Okay. I'm going to go put these in order on the bench on a nice clean surface. Okay, it's kind of going through these. You'll be happy to know that the push rods are excellent quality here. These are Trick Flow. Back up a little bit. So these are Trick Flow 6.7 length. 0.080 thickness chrome moly push rods. So these are good push rods. There's a really low chance any of these are going to be bent. So I really think we're okay. And like I said, I don't think anything's really wrong with the motor. But if you do have a lifter tick, like I noticed yesterday, it's always best just to check it. Some of these valves are going to be open, so they're going to have obviously some spring pressure on it. Best use a socket to loosen it up. Not rocket science here, guys. Make sure the fulcrum's okay. These are pretty nice rockers, so there shouldn't be any problems with them, but just make sure you don't have any, crazy wear or, looseness in your roller tip here. Roller tip should feel smooth. Okay. Just kind of inspecting the push rods here. Making sure they roll nice and smooth. You could put them on a really flat surface, but I highly doubt any of these guys are, going to be bent, but I'm going to check them anyways. Okay, you want to make sure to wipe off the top of the valves and kind of take a look at it, get the oil off of it, and kind of take a look at where the roller has been riding on top of the stem. You can kind of see, what you'll see is like a swirl pattern and almost in a star shape. So as the roller sits in the center of it, it should roll. It should stay in the center of the stem and not roll off the side of it. You can see that line right there. If you see that line kind of starting to wear out to the end here, or even up towards the top side here, your push rod length needs to be adjusted or changed out to the right length to make sure that the roller is in the center of the stem. And all these, you can see that I've seen a nice kind of a swirl pattern on top of it, but you can kind of see the wear mark going down the center of the stem, except for this one right back here. And I know it's hard to see. The wear pattern is on the center of it, but it looks like there's kind of just a nick on the side of it. So I'm assuming that the lifter that was giving me a little bit of trouble yesterday probably was slapping that valve, and it caused just a little bit of that nick you can see right here. So again, it's not a problem, and I don't anticipate this is an issue with the motor at all, but better safe than sorry. I wanted to check all my valves, check all the rockers, and just make sure everything is okay before I go hammer on it some more. So these look pretty good. Now we just need to put everything back together and preload, set the adjustments, and show you guys how to do that. Kind of back over here to my rockers and push rods. I got everything kind of cleaned up. I've taken each one individually. I know it's weird. I've cleaned off a section on the floor and make sure it's not dusty, and just kind of rolled them. And you'll know. Of course, these are chromoly. These are nice, thick, hardened steel. So these should not be bent unless I had a major problem, which I didn't. But anyways, if you're diagnosing what I'm doing here, just roll them against the ground or a flat surface. Make sure they don't wobble. That'll tell you if they're bent or not. So I've done that all 16 of mine now. Cleaned them up, inspected all the rockers, inspected the rollers. Everything looks good. So we're just going to do a nice, correct adjustment on these things and go about our day. Make sure, and I know this guy's been beating everyone's head, but when you assemble these, there is two sections of the roller here. See, this has a flat seat on it, and this is for your nut, the lock nut to screw down onto, and it seats inside of that seat right there. You could easily, accidentally, reverse this and put the flat part on this side, so that goes against the motor, and now you've got the, I guess, the concave side up top here. You could adjust it, and that would be the wrong way to do that, so don't do that. But there is a right way and a wrong way to put these rockers on the motor, and this is the right way to make sure that your lock fits in the seat on the top, like so. It pushes in. If you're able to push the push rod down, your lifter may be collapsed. And none of these are moving at all. What's moving is my finger and thumb. It's much better to do this with a rocker on. Then you can push the back side of the rocker. But I just want to make sure these are all solid. Notice how there's wear on the push rod. This is where it's been riding against the guide plates. So make sure we keep these up in the orientation they came out in. They say keep them all the same. I'll be honest, I don't think it matters. Now we're going to set the rockers down loosely. Again, make sure your orientation is correct on the stud. Make sure that it's seated. I'm not going to squeeze it down at all right now, just enough to hold it. Make sure the back of your push rod is seated in the cup. And again, I'm making very sure that the rocker's positioned correctly with the seat flat here. Okay, so pretty much everyone has their own way of adjusting rockers. I've done this many times. This is the way I've always done it and never had a problem. So you guys do it however you want, however you read, however you feel comfortable doing it, fine. The way I do it is turn the motor over. I'll do the intake side first. And whenever the exhaust valve is open, I will adjust the intake on that valve, and I'll mark down what cylinder was done. If you want to take your time and spin the motor some more and do, cylinder the very front all the way back, you can. Rotate it until you see the number 1 cylinder here. Exhaust valve, start dipping down, then adjust the intake. And then you can move down the line and do 2, 3, and 4. So you could do it that way, or you could do it the way I'm going to do it, which is a little bit fast. You don't have to spin the motor as much with your hand. It is just by looking at all the exhaust valves. And when the exhaust valve is fully open on one side, that's when you go ahead and do the intake on that one. So it's just a matter of watching your valves and knowing which one the exhaust and intake is in. So, okay guys, that's one way to time them. I'm going to show you another way to do it. If you're uncomfortable with doing it the way I'm doing, you want to be a little bit more scientific about it, you could always look at your distributor and mark the distributor the cap on the firing order to where the pointer is, and actually know where the compression and firing stroke is on that cylinder, and do that cylinder at a time. So say we've got our distributor cap here, we got number 1 set right there. This is going to go in your firing order of 1. Let's see, what is it? 1, 3, 7, 2, 6, 5, 4, 8. That's a firing order of 5.0, 302. So this would actually follow is the rotation of your distributor cap. Goes this way. It goes counterclockwise. So it would be 1, 3, 7, 2, 6, 5, 4, 8. So what you could do is actually move your motor to where your pointer is on number 1. So then you would just simply adjust 1 when your pointer is on 1 and do your preload. Adjust that one, turn it over, take care of 3, turn it over again, take care of 7, which you're not doing unless you're not doing this side, rotate it down to 2, that guy, and then rotate it all the way around here, and then do 4. So that's another way to do it. The tricky part about this is making sure that you're clocked and making sure you know where 1 is. The opposite side of 1 is going to be 6 on a 90-degree angle. Off that, you would have your 4 and your 7, and then your 45-degree angle from 1 would be your 3. 45-degree angle from 7 will be cylinder number 2, and then 45-degree from 6 would be your 5-cylinder, and then the same around. So if you've got the ability to mark number 1, put a line, mark it on your distributor cap 1 through 6, run a 90-degree from 1 to 6 to 4 and 7, and the 45-degree, then you've got your cylinders marked. Then you just crank the motor over until your pointer is on that cylinder, and then you adjust that cylinder. So that is another way to do it as well. Since I don't want to stick my hand in here and manually crank this thing, there's not a lot of room between here and the crank shaft anyways to get a socket down there. You could get a socket down there and just manually turn this. I'm going to create a 4-man's remote start by using 2 jumper cables. Now be careful with this because this is a hot side. If you touch anything on it, it will obviously arc like that. So what I've got is both the connections on here. Now when I touch these 2 together, it will crank the motor over. Now what we're going to do is obviously disconnect your ignition first, guys. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. Make sure you do disconnect your ignition. You don't want this thing firing, so disconnect your TFI module. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to focus on cylinder number 1 here. And I've got these down just a little bit. What we're going to do is watch it. I'm going to crank it over and wait till the exhaust valve. The exhaust valve is going to be the one to the left of your pairs. So, and obviously if you don't know, just look at your exhaust and you know where it's lined up to your exhaust, your header. So when this guy starts going down, we'll adjust this one. Right there is perfect. So notice we've got a lot of lift here on the exhaust. So now is a good time to adjust this guy. Now to adjust these, I'm going to show you one time and do the rest of the motor. Simply put your hand back here on the roller rocker, on the push rod, and now I can barely spin it. But if you loosen it, notice how there's, it's back and forth playing it. You want to get rid of that. So right now it's just touching, so there's no back and forth playing it at all. That's taking all the preload off of it, or taking all the slack out of it. Take your hand back here and kind of spin the push rod. Right now I can spin it a little more than I'd like. So let's just tighten it with my hand a little bit more. And right there, I could spin it, but it takes quite a bit of effort. So I'm going to consider that done. As far as checking, getting rid of your slack out of it. So once this intake valve, the slack is taken off of it, we're going to turn it 3/4 of a turn. So simply use your wrench as a guide here. We're going to go all the way down to the bottom. That's going to be a 1/2 a turn. Okay, right there is 1/2 turn. 3/4 is going to be here. Okay, we'll remove it. Remove your socket. And now is when you tighten down your poly lock. So now that cylinder 1's done, we're going to do the intake valve on cylinder number 2. Okay, now we're going to move on to cylinder number 3 here. Same deal, I'm going to crank the motor over until the exhaust starts going down. Once it's going down, we know that this is on its upstroke and closed, and we'll adjust the intake side of cylinder number 3. Right there, cylinder number 3 is down. The exhaust is down on it. Okay, lock the slack in this. Okay, we've taken the slack out of it. Now check your push rod. Okay, push rod is good right there. Okay, all the way up. Okay, I'm hitting the shock mount, so that's 1/2 a turn. We're gonna go 3/4 more. Okay. And now we're going to just turn this just a little bit more just to help lock it. Like that. Okay. The intake valve for number 3 is done. And we'll continue on. Okay guys, it's button backed up. Gotta clean it up, but moment of truth, let's see if it runs, see if it starts, make sure everything sounds okay. Hey, it sounds good. Really doesn't sound any different than the way it did before. But peace of mind, I know that when I heard that tick, I checked it. We may have a lifter that is starting to stick. Keep an eye on it, and I guess worst case scenario, we'll have to turn the engine, the top end of the motor off. If it gets worse and it comes back, and we'll just have to monitor it. But nothing is wrong. I can tell the rockers look good, the studs look fine, the push rods are okay. So that's really what I want to make sure. That's peace of mind. That's worth a lot for me. So also, it took a second to show you guys how do I adjust the rockers and a couple ways of doing it. So yeah, that's pretty good. I'm gonna go take the trailer out. We'll get it cleaned up. Yeah, you can see the cobwebs just blowing on this thing. And see, my tranny fluid is low. Needs to put more tranny fluid in it. Yeah. So long, Same at the gas station. In a place you're done with greed, 'cause all this world wants from you is to watch you fucking bleed. Got a little bit of a shake. Right now I've got specs down on it. Specs creep down, so I'm seriously going to this car wash. And God, I miss this car, man. I love this car. Yes, this they can't deny. Yeah, now the people call. Yes, still the system thrives. And so will all have freedom. And they begin to see that you get off the ways of a country that believes they're free. Got it back on, nice and shiny. And yeah, we're gonna do some work on this Nova here. We're gonna put a spacer in it. He's having some problems with the pipe set. Say what up, Sean. I'm closing the video out, but hey.
Yeah, still before moving into the ghetto with the mattress in the street?
Yeah, I saw that. I was gonna go just run over it just for fun. We're gonna work on this guy today. What do you got here, Sean?
Tell me your
Got
setup.
a 600 EFI 4, which has been nothing but issues.
What size motor is this?
It's got a 350 Ford. About a 425 motor.
You got a sleeper, man. You got some parts in this car. Got a stock looking, which is totally cool. I just hit my head on this. So yeah, you have some issues with the 5-tech. We're gonna poke around this a little bit. I should do a whole series on this car. It is badass. People love this car. They would love it. I love it. How do you not like it? Hell yeah.
Hey guys, that wraps up this video. Hey, if you made it through this entire video, you are a true fan, and God bless you. It's a long video of me just talking, so thank you so much. Stay tuned. I'm checking out the Mustang right now. I'm checking out the transmission issues on it, and follow up with that on the next video on what we're going to be doing with the transmission, if anything. But follow me on Instagram. You'll see some posts on it for the next video to come, and make sure to subscribe. We'll see you guys next time. Take care.